All right. Give me 1 second. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Awesome. This look good? Y'all can see my screen okay? All right, well, thank you. My name is Corey. My pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the programs coordinators here at Dailyax. And I'm so excited to be partnering with Marie with Recology. Tonight we have a really exciting presentation for you all. It's called Zero Waste During the Holidays. And really, we could not do this without our partners and collaborators, of course, with Recology and the city of Petaluma, which has made this possible and this event free for you all to be able to join us. A little bit about who we are. Dailyax is a nonprofit. We are a holistic education-based nonprofit that really seeks to inspire transformative action to create more connected, equitable, and climate resilient communities. We believe in taking a heart-centered approach to inspire daily actions to create a rippling effect of change to not only heal ourselves, but our society and our planet as well. And we do this through a three-pronged approach that starts in the soil and swells into culture and policy change. We do this in a few different modalities. Our theory of change begins first by spreading models and solutions, much like what we're doing here tonight with our meeting. It's really important to be able to engage with our community and partner with different organizations and networks to outreach to our whole community and offering a new set of skills and tools and resources to help to conserve and restore our environment, while also empowering others to grow their own food or medicine or habitat and to have that ripple out to their community. And we really believe that no action is too small. And I think that's what I love most about our webinar tonight is it can get really intimidating when we're talking about zero waste. But really we can look at how there's like little micro things that we can do to make a big impact of change. And it's more so having people do things imperfectly, but having a lot of people doing it so we can see that kind of that gradual incline. And that feels really encouraging to me. And we totally take into consideration that a lot of these things are personal to us and our identity and our culture. And we're not saying to eliminate it, but we're just saying, hey, let's take another look at this, or what other alternatives are there to create a positive solution. Excuse me, pardon me. Yeah, and we recognize that change cannot happen without collaboration. We invest a lot of time into community leadership and networks and alliances. We model this through our just and resilient communities, our youth programs, and our environmental health network. Lastly, as an art organization, we mobilize community power to build public and political will for justice policy and civic engagement. So it's a little bit of a lot. I want to be able to go into things tonight because we have a lot of material and some exciting activities. But of course, we have a few ground rules, or house etiquette-ness. Again, this is really exciting that we can see your faces and that it can be a little bit more interactive with us. So if you feel comfortable, you can show your face and your display, and we love to see it. If for any reason, if you do have to leave, that's okay. We are recording tonight, and we'll send an email at the end of this week that will show, we'll have like a link to the recording and some of the resources. If you are not talking or we're not doing a share, I ask that you try to remember to mute yourself when someone's presenting or if you're not speaking. And if you forget, I just might mute you as well. We love to utilize using the chat box. If you have any questions, you are free to ask them there, or you can raise your hand and Marie can choose to call on you, but feel reassured that we have a Q&A portion saved at the end of the webinar. So if you do have a question, there's plenty of time to ask and to make sure that your question will be answered. If for any reason that you don't feel comfortable being recorded, you can turn off your camera and change your name. And if you have any questions at any point, feel free to send me a message in the chat box. Without further ado, I am just so excited to introduce Marie to you all. I'm really excited. I am fairly new with Dailyax myself. In 2018, I actually interned. And so there's this photo with me and Marie when we were doing a project at Veterans Village. Marie worked with Dailyax for over 6 years as a development and communication coordinator. She got her BFA in graphic arts at Dominican University and graduated in 2013. She currently manages the local Zero Waste Petaluma, which is a branch of 350 Petaluma, and runs the Zero Waste North Bay group, which is between two different sectors that are motivated to help to eliminate trash. Currently, she works with Recology as the public education manager. And something really fun about her is that she makes inspiring trash as an artist and is all about helping to eliminate waste and to help conserve and preserve and to protect our resources. So without further ado, help me to give a warm welcome to Marie, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that introduction. I really am excited to be here and share this knowledge with you so that we can come to solutions together and how to reduce waste during the holidays. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. So let me share my screen. Okay, please. All right. Can everyone see my slides? Oh, wait. Sorry about that. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. All right. Can everyone see the slide? It should read zero waste during the holidays. Okie dokie. Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, I did work with Dailyax and it was a wild ride, and now I'm with Recology. So I just want to start by giving some background about Recology and then what you can expect for this workshop. So some just general context to start, and then we'll dive in. So Recology Sonoma Marin started operations in 2017, so not that long ago. And you may have seen our carts, bins, or boxes around town. And we don't just do garbage. We offer a multitude of services, including recycle, compost, garbage, C&D, street sweeping, and recycle processing services. We are proud to be employee owned, and we have about 460 plus employees, and we're also part of the Teamsters Union 665. And what makes us very special is that we operate on the philosophy of waste zero. What does that mean? It means that we want to make the highest and best use of all materials. So we prioritize education and outreach to reduce what is being sent to the landfill. And then we also prioritize recovering as much materials as possible so that this top picture can turn into this lower picture, making the garbage small and the compost and recycling a lot bigger to collect those resources. So why are we having this workshop today? Well, unfortunately, between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, as you can see in that little infographic on the side, we produce 25% more waste, which is, I mean, that's take the normal amount of waste we make and then take a slice of that and put it on top. That's a lot. So, and I just, excessive waste it's irresponsible, it's inefficient, and it's really harmful to our planet. So we want to avoid this and, look for solutions to avoid it. I just want to kind of start with an example to give you an idea of, how wasteful not using something to its highest and best use can be. So let's take the example of a roll of wrapping paper. So there were trees that were grown, and all those trees had, different inputs like water and light and nutrients and time. And then those trees were cut down. It was processed into pulp and manufactured into a paper product. And then you added color and glitter and shiny things. And then it gets packaged and it arrives in your hands so that you can wrap a present and then throw it in a basically hole in the ground, which is a landfill. This is just not a good use of all those resources that created this roll of paper. So we think that waste zero is a better way to go to manage our materials and make the most of them. And just to drive the point home of why we're having this presentation right now, this is a screenshot from Jeremy Irons' documentary movie Trashed. And I know for me, whenever, things might get tough with going zero waste, or there's challenges or obstacles, this is definitely why I do it. Is I don't want to contribute to the problem. I want to, help clean up, and so that we're not hurting the planet. And ultimately, if we're hurting the planet, we're hurting ourselves. What comes around goes around, and we just need to work at preventing that. So that's what this workshop today will hopefully help you do during the holidays. All right, so what to expect during this workshop? I think the main thing is that I really want to help you flex your thinking about materials. So I want you to think about where it came from, how much energy and inputs were taken to make it. And, a drought is happening right now. And I know the rains are more than welcome, but we're not out of the drought yet. So I definitely also want to highlight the impact and relationship of water to our stuff and our waste during the holidays as well. But overall, I really want you to think about our resources in the terms of highest and best use. We're going to move through 3 categories of the holidays, which I think pretty much covers a lot of what goes on in the holidays. And it's going to be in this order: food, gifts, and decor. And while we move through those areas, I'm going to refer to the hierarchy of highest and best use, which can be pretty simply summed up by this little graphic on the side. Starting disposal is what we're avoiding, but moving up the rungs to recycle and rot, which is good, very important. And then moving up more to reuse, which is better. And then moving finally to the best, which is rethinking, redesigning, and prevention. So whenever I refer to this hierarchy, this is kind of the gist of what I'm talking about. So if we're, going back to that example of the wrapping paper, instead of landfilling that, you could start by, it's getting wrapping paper that you could recycle it. And then that way, recycling it, you're not creating that, that can be repurposed into a new material and not creating a demand for that new virgin material. What would be better is reusing it every year, and then you're reducing the demand for any new material to be created in the first place. And it, hopefully could be used again once you recycle it. And then the best is rethinking wrapping paper altogether and doing something like an experience. And then you've kind of, nipped that whole thing in the bud. None of that has to happen. So this is what I want to go over today, is kind of looking at everything you're doing during the holidays and really, really kind of evaluating every entry point and where we can move up the ladder to the best. A couple of things I want to say is this isn't black and white. This is more of it's a good thinking exercise and to give you solutions to work with. And just remember, the lowest rung, the recycle rot, that's not bad. Like if you're anywhere on this hierarchy, you're doing great. Just try to keep moving up the hierarchy. That's all. And we're going to have a couple of small interactive activities to keep you on your toes. And with that, we're going to kick off into food. But before I do that, let me just change into something more festive. Hold on one second.
You can hear the jingle bells. It's awesome.
Much better. I have my thrifted sweater that I added some reused materials to make sure that this session is fun and festive. All right, so let's get going. Okay, food. This is a big one. This is, the highlight of many holiday traditions and memories. But unfortunately, according to the FDA, about 30 to 40% of the US food supply throughout the year is wasted. And that's throughout the chain. That's from it being grown to it being, commercially sold to it being in your home. And this is a really big opportunity to prevent that. And, as I mentioned before, we're in a drought. And speaking of water, the food you eat actually makes up the largest part of your overall water footprint. It can, in reality, make up about 2/3, generally speaking. And overall, diets that are made up of highly processed foods like candies and chips and ready-made meals require a lot more water than those that incorporate more whole foods like fruits and vegetables. And bonus, it's a lot better for you. You can actually, if you're curious, this is just an aside, but there's a water calculator tool where you can go over your lifestyle choices and see how much of a water footprint you have. And I will be sure to link that resource in the follow-up notes. There are a lot of resources in this presentation, and I'm going to be linking all of them in that follow-up email. So do not worry, you are covered. So yeah, let's dive into what you can do about food waste. So we're going to start with that first rung on the ladder, the compost and the rot. I'm sorry, the compost and the recycle. And that's extremely important. That means that those materials, instead of, in the case of food scraps, instead of it going into the landfill and causing methane gas to release into the atmosphere, it's being recovered and it's turning into rich compost that can be an amendment in gardens and to grow more food. So compost, this is Recology right here. So you can compost food scraps, soiled paper, yard trimmings, and like I said, it'll be turned into black gold is what we like to call it. And then recycling, of course, you can recycle just as it shows in this image, paper, aseptic containers like milk cartons, glass, metal, any rigid plastics. You just have to make sure that it's empty, clean, and dry. You don't have to necessarily wash it and scrub it, but just as long as there's not contamination in the materials. And because we're recovering these materials, that means that they're going, instead of going and getting virgin inputs and materials, this is going to be turned into, we're going to save that whole process and it's going to be reused. So to really drive this, oh, and I would just want to mention one more thing. If you're ever confused and don't know where something goes, we have this super handy tool called the What Bin Search tool, and you can actually just type in anything that you're trying to figure out where it goes and look that up. It's very useful, and I will also put those in the resource follow-up email. All right, so sorting game. This is where it gets a bit more interactive. I'm going to show 10 items, and you can take this chance now to unmute yourself And you can shout out where you think it goes, and I will tell you where it actually goes. Okay. So the first item we have. Ooh, okay, I'm going to start with an easy one.
Recycle.
All right, that was pretty easy. Recycle. All right. This is a compostable plastic cup.
Compost.
Trash.
This actually goes in the trash. It is not actually compostable in our facilities. So,
Oh, bummer.
yeah.
So even if it says compostable, trash.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Why is that?
Compostable plastics. This is a very hot button issue, but it is not accepted in our bins other than the garbage. Okay.
But I
one.
can put it in my compost bin, right?
No.
No.
It does not break down fast enough.
Oh,
And it can, the reason why people don't, or I'm sorry, composting facilities don't accept it too, is it degrades the quality of the compost. So they can't sell it at a higher price, like, and call it organic.
Oh, God.
This one, this is easy. Glass.
Recycle.
Recycle.
Easy, easy, easy. This sandwich that has meat, cheese, and all kinds of good stuff. Pretend that there's a bite taken out of it.
Compost.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. All right. And then we have this coffee cup.
Garbage.
Yeah. Yep. And we have this paper plate that somebody used at their party. It's not coated.
Compost.
Yeah.
What was wrong with the coffee cup? Why couldn't that go into the compost? Because it touched someone's lips or what?
No, because there is a plastic lining inside of this, which
Oh, really?
means that it's multiple layers and it cannot be separated. Therefore, it cannot be recycled.
All those Starbucks cups have plastic. That's totally carcinogenic to put hot liquid into a plastic cup. And people don't know that beyond the lid. To be
Yeah.
drinking hot liquid in a plastic cup is carcinogenic. It should be outlawed.
I agree. And unfortunately, that's why it goes in the garbage. And let's see. There's this water bottle.
Recycle.
Yep. And we have, let's see. I'm going to do just one more. This guy. This is clean foil that was balled up into a ball.
Recycle.
Yep. As long as it's clean and you put it up into a ball that's as, bigger than a baseball, it can be recycled.
It has to be bigger than a baseball to be recyclable?
Yes, because this, when it's going through the sort line, there's actually a magnet and it has to be able to pick this up. So
Wow.
This makes it denser and more capable of being picked up. Does that answer your question?
Marie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
cool.
thank you.
Yes, that was just a very simple, straightforward sorting exercise. All right, moving
Can I
on.
pause? I'm gonna ask you all to mute yourself, or I might go back and mute y'all. And if you have any other questions moving forward, go ahead and use the chat box or raise your hand.
Yeah, and thank you so much for shouting out. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So the next, I just want to continue on this rung of recycle and rot. This is actually a image of our sort line. It's at our MRF, aka Material Recovery Facility. And I just want to share this because anytime there is contamination in a container that you're recycling, so this is where all of those materials in your blue bin are going, it's these people who have to deal with it. I can't stress enough that on the other side of the blue bin, there are people and they have to process these materials. And this is one stretch. You can see there's a lot of mechanisms in this place. But I just want to also take this opportunity to say that it's also about their safety. So never ever place batteries or propane tanks or household hazardous waste in your bin, because it could seriously harm our employees. So I just want to take that moment to share that. And I think it's important for people to see where all their objects are going and being sorted.
Ray, we have someone that asked a question. Would you like us to put off till the end, or is this an okay time to have?
Yeah, if it's relevant. Otherwise, I'd like to save them to the end. Does that work? Or I can't see who had their
It's
hand up.
relevant and it's very short. I broke a bottle of water and I was unsure what to do with it because I know it can sort of contaminate the paper, but I didn't want to throw it in the trash. What do I do with a broken glass?
Is it like, it's like a wine glass bottle?
It was a water glass. It was from bottled water.
Okay. So it's what I'm asking is, it's not like a wine glass or like a, because you can't put like a wine glass in the recycling because it burns, it melts at a different temperature than say like a water bottle glass or a wine glass. So I think that can go in the recycling because it's just a regular bottle, similar to a wine glass material.
But don't the splinters get into the paper and contaminate it? Like, for instance, my neighbors, they put all kinds of unrecyclable things in the blue bin, including like this
Do you
bag.
mind if I just put a pin in your question? Because I know actually there's also some zero waste specialists on this call right now. And I'd love to get into the more detailed questions of what people want to recycle and stuff at the end, if that's all right with you.
Most certainly.
Okay, thank you. No problem. The questions are definitely welcome. I just have a lot of material to go over. All right, so moving up the rung, and next rung is reuse, or that's better. I know that one of the things I like to do is reuse any kind of food scraps. So I actually have this handy dandy book with me. It's by Lindsay Jean Hard, and it's a book about cooking with food scraps. I included that on the resource list as well. But it's a really great resource, and you can make, I don't know, orange peel candies and all kinds of fun things. So this is something I recommend if you enjoy cooking and want to explore that. And then also one of my favorite things is, just lengthening the life of your vegetables or your leftover, carrot butts and celery ends. And I tend to save those and put them all into a big and make stock out of them. That way, you're skipping that step of, composting, even you making the most of those food scraps by turning them into soup. It's a great winter yummy dish. So I highly recommend doing that. Another one is donate extra food that you have. We have some incredible local organizations that are working on this. And I know there's always, canned food drives and things like that. So be sure to participate in that because there are lots of people that could certainly use it. Whenever you go food shopping, make sure to use your reusable bags and produce bags. That I personally, this is my bag o' bags. I carry it in my trunk. And so whenever I need to go shopping, I have it handy, and it's got reusable bags and my produce bags. So I'm just ready to go whenever I need to. Another thing is if you're going to a party, I recommend bringing your own, utensils or your own container. That way you can bring leftovers home with you, and then it's preventing that food waste from happening at their party. That's always a good idea. And finally, best. So this is rethink, reducing, and prevention. This is the ultimate way to reduce your food waste. Most of all, just be proactive. Think ahead in order to prevent food waste from happening in the first place. So, if you have a meal that maybe you can't finish as soon as you thought, then freeze it and save it for another day. And then you have it ready for when you want to eat it later. Plan. This is so important. I cannot stress this enough. Cook and serve with a plan. There's actually a really handy tool called the Guesstimator from food. I think it's savefood.com. Yeah, savethefood.com. And you can actually, it asks you a series of questions like, how many heavy eaters are you having over? How many light eaters are you having over? What are you considering serving? And it will give you a guesstimation of exactly how much you need to buy so that you have no leftovers, some leftovers, however much leftovers you want. So it's a very proactive way of planning your cooking. I recommend that. Don't overserve. I know that makes sense, but it's easy to pile it high. And you just want to make sure everything gets eaten on the plate. So, try smaller plates or, and so that people are, serving themselves less and then this seems so simple, but just wait 15 minutes until you get seconds. It actually takes the brain, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes from your I'm full signals to get to your brain. So that's another thing that can come in handy. The next one is use what you have rather than going out and purchasing, all new food. Go into your fridge, take an inventory of what you have and get creative on how to make meals out of that. Again, buy locally or grow your own food. That whole statistic about 30 to 40% of the food chain being wasted, you can reduce, you're basically cutting out that entire food chain when you grow your own food or you're supporting a farmer that is near you. You're keeping it all on site. You can compost it on site. It's closing that entire loop so that you don't have to buy an apple that was grown a couple states away and transported and stored and put on a shelf, and its nutrients is probably degraded, and then it finally arrives to you. So buying locally and growing your own food can actually have a very large impact. Let's see. I also can't stress enough buying in season. That means that, again, you're not buying some, avocado from Mexico that had to travel super far. You're buying local, nutrient dense in season fruits and vegetables. All right, moving on to gifts. So I love giving gifts, and I think it's a great way to show appreciation or celebrate someone. But again, we have to consider everything that happened before that gift that arrived in your hand. So let's say you bought a scarf at, a big chain store. You have to consider there was fiber that had to be produced, whether it's plastic polyester or cotton that had to be picked or cashmere or whatever it is, that those materials had to be sourced somehow, and then it gets manufactured. There's probably water in that process to clean the materials and whatnot, and then it gets shipped, and then it gets packaged, and all of that energy and resources up to it getting into your hands. So in this next section, I'm just going to talk about the importance of sourcing gifts responsibly and just keeping zero waste in mind when you are giving gifts. All right, so again, we're going to start at the recycle rot level. So, and then I also just want to touch on, if you are buying new, how to best do that. So if you are buying new, just remember that supply chain. Remember that you are creating demand for new virgin materials if you are buying new. So, make sure that it is recycled content. It's maybe compostable at the end of its life. It's fair trade. It's sustainably made. And just think about the life of that object beyond giving it to the person you care about. Also consider buying from a zero waste shop. I know that we have, I personally just went to a Refill Madness in Sonoma, and I got some, gifts that were like consumables, and it was a great thing to support them than like Amazon or Target, and that's another tip, is consumables are a great gift, because for example, I also went to another shop that was a bulk shop, and I got some tea, and I put it in a mason jar, and I'm giving it to one of my friends, and they can consume the tea and then use the jar later for whatever they want to use it for. So yeah, if you are buying new, try to, keep those things in mind as much as possible. And, maybe there's somebody in your life that has showed interest in zero waste. I think that's totally okay if you want to get them like a reusable bags, or, to go coffee cup, or something that helps them in their journey. I would just tread lightly, because if they haven't showed any interest at all and you give them those things, it might be interpreted as you pushing your values on them. So just be sensitive about that. For example, my grandma is getting really into zero waste, which is great. And I got her some reusable produce bags for her to use when she goes out shopping, because I cry a little bit every time she shows me her pile of produce bags. So yes, that's always a good option. And then finally, recycling your gift wrap. So gift wrap is a big one. It can also be kind of confusing, what might be recyclable, what might not be, but a general rule of thumb is if it's shiny, glittery, it has some kind of reflective surface, reuse it, because ultimately it can go nowhere but the landfill, sadly. So I have some examples, and Recology created this handy dandy little chart. It's like a little cheat sheet for you to use if you would like. But I'm just going to show you some samples. So for example, this wrapping paper, you can kind of see how it has a very reflective surface. And this gift bag, you can see there's lots of glitter on it and stuff. These need to be reused. So they cannot be composted or recycled. A simple paper bag, this can, and other colors, as long as it doesn't have a plastic coating, this can actually be recycled. So that's good. And then also, your kind of standard tissue paper, any color actually, this can be composted. And of course, you can see on all these items, reuse is key. So you can always reuse it. And I just want to mention, I know I went to a thrift store and I found some fabric, and I actually reuse this year after year and just wrap presents in that too. So that's another option. And then, bows and ribbons, and those you need to reuse those because they will unfortunately have to go in the garbage. All right. So just kind of continuing on the gift wrapping thing, you could see that there were a lot of paper products. So I just want to share the importance of recycling whenever possible, because recycling 1 ton of paper saves 17 trees, 2 barrels of oil, 7,000 gallons of water, 4,100 kilowatts of electricity, 3 cubic yards of landfill space. I almost want to say, and a partridge in a pear tree. I don't think it saves that, but. And then these are just some more ideas of, reusable items that you could get for someone to help them in their journey. All right. So the next rung on that hierarchy of highest and best use is reuse. Getting people thrifted or regifting items. I mean, we have access to so many thrift stores in our community. It's kind of nuts. And often it's good to try to prioritize the thrift stores that are giving to a good cause, maybe over, you know, like Goodwill that is more for profit. So I personally love going to like Saks, where that money is going to support hospice, or Alphabet Soup. I just went there, and that money is going to Petaluma School District. So, and then not to mention, there are numerous reuse apps: eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark. There's no shortage of where you could find a reused, you know, item to gift. And a word to the wise: if you're going to re-gift someone, somebody already gifted you, just don't give it back to the same person. I've maybe done that once and it was kind of awkward, so I don't recommend it. Yes, if you're thinking about giving the gift of technology, refurbished is always a good way to go, because then you're using something that is not sourcing virgin metals like gold and some of those harder to get materials that are in conflict areas overseas. So especially as much as possible with technology, you want to do refurbished, because, and there's, you know, rigorous processes where they're certified and you can make sure that they work for you. But that's definitely a good way to go and dipping into technology. You can also make your own gift out of repurposed materials. I know I love Pinterest. It's an incredible resource, and just space for learning on how to make stuff. And you could even incorporate meaningful materials like pictures or ticket stubs, and it'll have more of an impact as a gift. Another thing I want to mention is EPR, extended producer responsibility. So this isn't, I would say, as big in the United States, but it is growing in, you know, availability, use, and popularity. But this means that when a company produces something, they have to take it back. So this is contributing to that circular economy model. And anytime you see a business doing that, you want to support them. So that's just, I guess, more of something to put into your consciousness for now, until it becomes widespread and it's all being done circularly, which is the goal. All right, and we're at the highest point of Hierarchy Mountain, which is kind of inverted, but that's, you know, neither here nor there. So I think that, you know, rethinking the whole gift idea is valuable to do. Why not give experiences and memories instead of a physical gift? As you see here on the right, this is a very handy little flyer from Zero Waste Marin, and they list tons of gift ideas that don't come wrapped up in a bow. And I'll just share a little personal story. When I started dating my boyfriend, I think like 5 years ago, we're definitely gift givers. We like giving gifts. We're big on that. And it was getting out of hand basically. And so we were like, okay, let's kind of rethink this a couple years ago. And we're like, okay, well, what if we did, you know, one item, but then we also did a donation and an experience. And since we've started doing that, it's actually become so much more fun. And we do, you know, it means we get to do things together, and the donation is always really meaningful because we dedicate it to the person based on what they like. So that was something that worked really well for us. And moving on down the list. So also you might want to consider digital Christmas cards of save the trees, save the postage. You can also try planting a tree in someone's name. I know I've used Trees for Change, and I was able to dedicate a tree planting to someone, and they got a little certificate, and it was really, really, really meaningful to them. And they enjoyed it immensely, probably way, way more than if I had gotten them a scarf. And then this seems really simple, but ask them what they want. I mean, be more intentional about the gift giving and the use, because I mean, after we talked about all those resources going into that object, when you want that object to be used a ton and not wasted by it being like, God forbid, thrown away or, you know, not used or whatnot. So, and then the last is start early. I think that many last minute decisions is a recipe for a high waste holiday. I know I start like October, November, just so that I can mindfully move through these practices and do the best I can. Because when you're getting down to the wire and you're in a rush, you just make poor decisions. And this sounds so simple, but it really is. This is the proactive level of just starting early, you know. All right. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the chat. And I just want to ask, after kind of going through those gift ideas, if anybody wants to share maybe a new gift idea that popped into their head or something they're excited to give. I don't know if I can see the chat. But yeah, I'd just love to see if what ideas people have, or maybe something they're excited about as far as a zero waste gift. Any takers?
I'm happy to share one.
Yeah.
I've harvested my herbs and I've made pesto with like in my ice cubes, and I'll be like giving those to some family members so they have some pesto.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'll share one. So the experience gift I'm going to give my boyfriend is I'm going to make him a little like compostable coupon. And we're going to actually have a adventure day in San Francisco. Yeah.
I see some in the chat. Annie says a massage or music.
Nice. Yes.
Eric says that he's been doing experience gifts for the last several years.
Awesome.
Dylinda, I'm sorry if I mispronounced. Dried persimmons. Can I come to your holiday party?
Oh, I love that. Gave away reuse gift bag of homegrown lemons.
And he says mystery dates. I love that.
I love mystery dates. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your ideas with us. All right. Okay, so we're gonna just move on to the next section, decor. So decor, again, you know, it's an amazing way to have a festive air in your home. I know I love having, you know, lights in the house and just watching them and drinking tea. That's like one of my favorite things. But again, we have to keep in mind that where did it come from? How was it sourced? You know, what kind of energy and inputs were used to create it? So we're going to move through the hierarchy and see some solutions. So again, starting at that first tier of, you know, recycling, compost, and just kind of general sourcing, a fresh tree, that's not the most sustainable solution, but you know, people do it and it's totally an option. You just want to make sure that you compost it afterwards. And Recology offers curbside and drop-off tree recycling services after the holidays. And I actually have on the next slide, I have a couple of flyers to share with Sonoma County and Marin residents, so you have more information. Very important, flocked trees cannot be recycled, and you must remove your ornaments before you recycle them. And you can also if you miss the curbside or drop off times, you can always cut it so it fits into your green bin and your green bin closes. That's very important. Again, if you're getting, decor, just make sure it's sourced responsibly, recycled content, fair trade, sustainably made, and think, can it be composted afterwards? Or what is the longevity of it? And then, another tip is just, if you're going to do lights, try to do LED Energy Star lights. They actually save 75% of energy and can last 25 times longer than regular lights. Also, if you have lights that go out, try to get a repair kit and repair them. Just sit down, put on a movie or music or whatever, and just try to repair those strands so that LEDs don't go to e-waste and regular strands don't go in the garbage. And then this is kind of a common tip, but just turn off the lights during the day so you can save energy. And again, here are those recycling resources that are going to be in that follow-up email. All right. So moving up that hierarchy ladder, what would be better is reuse. I learned kind of a random fact that 40% of all battery sales are made during the holidays, which is, I don't know, kind of random to me, but I guess it makes sense. So definitely think about getting rechargeables, and then, it'll save you money in the long run, and, you're getting more use out of those materials. And I want to take this opportunity to say, talking about batteries, they never, ever, ever go inside your blue bin, because if we're processing it and it gets rubbed up against some metal, and trust me, there's a lot of metal at our MRF, it can actually quickly start a fire. And there have been fires at different Recology facilities, and they are very dangerous. So please visit our website and learn how to dispose of them properly, because it can be dangerous to our workers. Also, you want to use, reuse decorations, whether that's, sprucing up what you already have, or maybe going to the thrift store and getting decor there. There's already so much decorations already created. You really don't need to just go to Michael's and get that piece of decor, because you just take a moment and think and check out the thrift stores, because there's just tons of decor out there already. So and then also consider using repurposed materials. I know a couple years ago, I actually taught another class where we focus more on making little ornaments out of repurposed materials. We made these like little cork reindeer, which is that bottom left-hand picture in this slide. And it was really fun. And it was a nice opportunity to connect with people and use our hands and make something pretty. And then also maybe consider a repurposed Christmas tree. And, like if you have to use a fake tree, I do not recommend getting a new plastic tree, because that's just creating demand for new plastics. It's not recommended. But, if you want a tree and you can't afford to get one every year, or you can't afford to get a potted plant, just try as much as possible to go reuse at a thrift store. It takes like 20 plus years to offset those impacts of a plastic tree. So something to consider. And then finally, moving on to the last highest rung is that rethink, design, prevent. You can do a living tree. You could do a dwarf tree. I know there are new services coming into play where you could actually rent a tree. I could not find anyone for our local area, but I know there's ones in like Santa Cruz. They service South San Francisco. I think there's some up north. But that hopefully is a growing service and could be an option for us in the future. And a lot of these places, they plant the tree at the end of its life. So your, impact is much lessened than if you were to cut one down every year. And then use natural materials. I had an old orange that was stale, and so I actually sliced it up, put it in the oven at 350, or not 350, sorry. I put it in the oven at 30 minutes at a very low temperature. And I made a little garland out of it. And afterwards I can still compost it, but now it's serving this, secondary purpose. Yeah, or you can go on site to wherever you are and try to source natural materials close to where you are. It's better than, going and getting at a store where it had that whole supply chain. You're just cutting that out. Very important to remember. And so, in conclusion, just to kind of wrap this up, I hope this just helped you think more flexibly about the hierarchy of highest and best use, and, where you can plug into that hierarchy and always try to keep moving up it. And just expanding your consciousness of where materials come from and all of the inputs that it took to get into your hands and making the most of that, or even, cutting that supply chain and rethinking things. Always consider the impact of new virgin materials versus used. I mean, when you buy a new virgin material, you're creating demand, and that's something to always consider how you do it, and do it mindfully. Use what you got. We have a lot of stuff. We make a lot of waste. We have lots of resources that we're using constantly. So try to make the best of what you have. And then, at that very tip top of the hierarchy is rethink and redesign. Ask big questions. Do I even need this? Can I replace it with something better? Can I have a difficult conversation that changes things? And, most of all, enjoy zero waste. I mean, it's not a strict regimen to be imposed upon you. And that's what I love about it. It's kind of, there's all these great benefits that come from being zero waste. Like maybe you go to the farmer's market instead of the store to get fruits and veggies, and you end up losing weight because you are eating healthier, or, just the fact that you've gone zero waste, you've saved money, or, you made that decor piece together with friends and family and had those moments of connection and togetherness instead of just going to Michael's and buying it because it popped in your head. So these are all kind of unforeseen benefits of zero waste that I personally love. And on the slide, you'll see a very cute Aware Animals illustration that, says it really well. Smaller steps can get you further along. Don't be overwhelmed by all the possible choices and actions you can take. Get something, grab on, run with it, and use it as a starting point, and just keep moving up that highest and best use ladder. And so I want to end with my favorite quote from Zero Waste Chef. Her name's Anne Marie Bonois. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And with that, that's it. I want to thank everyone for, participating in this workshop. And these are the different resources that I was referencing throughout. And I will give these to Corey to include on the email. So don't worry if you miss anything. I've tried to link as much as possible so you have a wealth of resources to use. And yeah, I guess we can go into questions if anybody has questions. I'm gonna stop sharing. Corey?
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat right now for people that have questions. But let's just all give Maria a round of applause and say thank you so much. I know I was taking notes, so thank you so much. I was learning a bunch. Thank you. It was such a joy. If you have a question, we can start. Raise your hand. I see that someone has already. And as we make our way through there, some people asked some questions in the chat, so I'll get those ready for us and we can read those off as well. But thank you so much, Marie. That was lovely.
Yeah. Okay. I think that so Celia Ferber, our Waste Zero manager, she's actually in the audience right now, and she can better answer the glass question that we had previously. If we can, yeah, Celia, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Awesome job, Marie. Great tips. I learned a lot of, I got really inspired for gift ideas and decorations. But yeah, just to return to that glass question. So if it's a consumable glass bottle or jar, so a jar of pickles or a wine bottle or a beer bottle, that type of glass melts at a pretty low temperature, and that's the type of glass that can be recycled in our stream. So you can go ahead and put that in your recycle cart. It's okay if it breaks. We expect it to break through the process of our truck picking it up and then it going to the sorting facility. Sorry, my dog's running. It's okay if it breaks. We do see it broken at our facility, and we have ways of dealing with that. And the vendor that processes it further and melts it down is actually in Fairfield, so pretty local to us. The types of glass that we can't take in the recycle stream would be like your reusable glass cup that maybe broke, or your reusable wine glass that maybe broke accidentally. It's just that type of reusable glass unfortunately melts at a much higher temperature, and it's just not recyclable by the vendor that we use in Fairfield. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Celia.
I had Terry. Are you still in here? I think they may have hopped off. Thank you for asking the question about will in reference to the compost. That's a great question, and I'll have to give a follow-up on that one, but I wanted to address it, so thank you. And then I saw in the chat that there was some dialogue around the aluminum and it not being magnetic, but you want it larger than, I think, 3 inches so that it can be sorted. Celia or Marie, are you happy to go into a little bit more detail and share with the group in this space?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Celia. I see you unmuted yourself.
Sure, or you can take it. Feel free.
No, go ahead, Celia.
Okay. So Lori brought up a good point that the aluminum isn't magnetic. I actually made that same mistake thinking it was magnetic just 2 days ago. So that's a mistake that can be made from time to time. But the reason we want it balled up like a softball is because we want it to be larger than the 4 inches. Anything smaller than 4 inches is too small for the sorters to then separate it off of the sort line. So it just needs to be a sizable object, like a softball, to actually get captured through our process.
So that's why little plastics and things like that fall through, because they're just too small for us to process. I mean, you saw the sort line, and it's, yeah, it's got to be above that 4 inches.
Thank you. And Celia, it's lovely to have you here with us tonight too, and being able to answer some of these questions. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, thank you. This is great. Good turnout.
Any other questions? I wasn't keeping up on the chat because I was looking at my slides, but were there any other kind of questions?
I see a hand raised. Is it Irene? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but you feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's just a comment. First of all, I really appreciate you pairing waste with Christmas. Americans are 5% of the world, and we use 25% of all the resources, and that's really a gross injustice, and is totally unsustainable. So I just want to say that there are other words that we can use, and they may be frightening to some, and it may be controversial when we talk about, about meat eating and deforestation or degrowth. But these conversations are essential when we look at the fact that we have 6 years, according to the UN panel on climate change, to turn this around. Our planet has already been irreparably harmed in some ways. This is not necessarily a time to be polite, and we can be diplomatic without being unkind. So I really dare you all, and I appreciate your, your hesitancy, but we're in an emergency, and I really want to encourage you. I'm much older than you, and I won't be around, and I want to light the fire under your feet, to say things as they are. So I appreciate this talk very much because of the repeated waste. But I just also dare you to go to the next level and to bring this kind of talk to schools, to young children, to places where they could have truly impact as well. The America is single-handedly threatening all life on Earth, and we have to be big enough to face it.
Thank you so much for your share. I really appreciate it, and I can hear the passion with what you're wanting to express. And it's so prevalent, and I think Marie really touched on so much of this. And just everyone can meet us or meet this mission and this goal that we have ahead of us with where we're at. We're all at different stages, and it's a spectrum, and there's a way to be inclusive. And Marie, really appreciate all the suggestions that you gave tonight, and the ways that you can show up and fight this good fight, because it definitely takes all hands on deck. And I appreciate you all coming on tonight and taking time. I know there's Zoom fatigue, but thank you for taking time tonight and to show up and to have this curiosity mindset, and a growth mindset too, and to build community and collaboration. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because we definitely are in a dire time. And I think my goal with this was to really flex people's thinking, because I mean, I know I can speak from my experience, at Recology is, oh man, there are so many people where their consciousness is not thinking about that entire, supply chain, where it's coming from, that whole. So, this is to really just, it was to think about highest and best use and rethinking things. And I've never done this specific presentation before, but I wanted to create it to also reproduce it and offer it to different groups too. Or that was my goal.
Delivered excellently. Thank you so much. All right. Well, unless anyone has any other questions, comments, concerns, or recipes, I think we're gonna wrap it up for an evening. And this will be, it's been recorded, so you all will get a recording of this in our follow-up message, and all of these resources. Marie had great tips and resources, and I'm so excited to try these out.
Yeah, and thank you so much, everybody, for taking time out of your night to be here and come together and listen and expand your mind, or just be together. I appreciate it and look forward to many more of these.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.